is the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show, sponsored by your North Texas Chevy dealers. Together, let's drive.
It is time for some fun sports talk. Hello, everyone. Well, it's a Game 7 Ultimate Dallas Sports Show, and when it comes to Game 7s, it just can't be beat up. My partner in crime is with me here tonight. We got the one and only Andrew Cely, the producer extraordinaire. AC, when we talk about Game 7s, what comes to mind for you?
Tension, anxiety, biting nails, anything that revolves around that. I'm just thankful for the last couple Sundays we've had to deal with the Mavs losing on Sunday and recapping those. I was worried coming into this we'd have a moratorium on the Stars season. Thankfully, they pulled it off.
I just love how frenetic it gets, right? It's like you are on the edge of your seat, and if you're not, you're going to miss something. So it's just great stuff, fun to watch.
Oh, that's just the tip of the iceberg, though. Let's get on to what's on the show today.
Here's What's on the Show, sponsored by NFM.
Well, I mean, we got to start off with the two best words in sports. Game 7 in the AAC as the Stars knock out the defending champs. The Mavs have already punched their tickets to the second round. Thankfully, we avoided some heart attack there. We'll recap their first round action, get you ready for round 2 against the Thunder. And last but not least, a top 5, the top 5 sports acquisitions in DFW history. I'll explain a little bit more as we get closer to it in the show. That's what's on the show, Joe. Who is on the show?
Well, we got a great panel for you today. We've got Andrew Cely, who you met already, and then we've got a great group joining us today. Jonah, who of course is, you all know him as our great reporter here on WFAA. We've also got Saad Yousuf. Saad is going to join us. Saad does great work for The Athletic. He also works for The Ticket. He does great stuff, and he really knows his Dallas Stars. So we're going to be able to dive deeply into what happened today in that Game 7. And you know what? Without further ado, let's get to it. Right? And listen, Saad, I'm going to tee you up because I know you cover this team a lot. When it comes to the way that the Stars were able to pull off that win through those frenetic last few moments, what sticks out to you?
Jake Ottinger. I mean, you know, I think when you begin with whatever this series was, and especially Game 7, Jake Ottinger in the biggest moments, and you know, we're talking about Game 7, but also I'm talking about the third periods and overtime throughout the entire series. In the biggest moments, Jake Ottinger comes through in the biggest ways. I think it starts with Jake Ottinger for me, especially in Game 7. But how can you not talk about Wyatt Johnston as well? It takes, you know, you can put a 0 on the scoreboard, but you still got to score goals. And Wyatt Johnston, the 20-year-old, was otherworldly throughout this entire series. I think I saw a stat out there. He had 31 scoring chances, and you know, the next best on Dallas had half of that. So Wyatt Johnston, the 20-year-old second-year player who was drafted in the first round in 2021, was absolutely phenomenal. By the way, his draft mate, Logan Stankoven, who was drafted in the second round of that same year, also phenomenal and was bumped up to the top line for Game 7. Crazy to think that his season began in the AHL, and here he was on the top line in a Game 7 against the defending champs. So for me, it's Wyatt Johnston on the offensive side and Jake Ottinger holding down back in the net.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that at all. Hopefully nothing's wrong with our IFB, with our connection there to Jonah. Jonah, can you hear us now?
I've got you now. I couldn't hear a thing you were saying earlier, and I was hoping you weren't going to throw it out to me and be like, Jonah, what do you think? And I'd be like, what's happening?
I've got you now, Joe. In the sports office.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to hear from Joe. Hey, no, seriously, Jonah, you were in the barn for all of the craziness, all of the euphoria. What will you take from it?
The energy, first and foremost. I just absolutely love Game 7s. To me, they're the greatest thing we have in professional sports. The winner-take-all atmosphere here at the AAC was fantastic. Stars fans, they might not be known across the country, but they were. For us here in town, we know how strong that fan base is. As for the game itself, Pete DeBoer, man, I mean, I know he's got a ton of great players, and their lineup goes super deep of guys who can score the puck. But 8-0 in Game 7s as a head coach in the NHL, at some point it's not a coincidence. And 8-0 speaks to how he's able to rally his guys. And so to be able to do this tonight against that team after being down 2-0, incredible job by Pete. Those are the two things I'll take from it, the atmosphere and the job Pete did to get to 8-0 in Game 7s.
And I don't want to forget about the captain, Jamie Benn, right? Because there were moments in this game when you just needed a show of force. You needed to let the defending champions know that you weren't going to go away, even after you fell in that deep hole down 2 games, losing both of them on your home ice. So there were a few times there when he made sure that his presence was felt in the right way, and I won't forget that either. That was great stuff too. And while we got you here, Saad, I'm curious about when you think about what the Knights were able to do. Was there a moment when there was some trepidation that you thought, because they were the defending champs, that they would have that resurrection moment like great villains do and come back and haunt the Stars?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. First, Joe, I just have to piggyback on your point because it's an excellent point about Jamie Benn. And to me, that moment, though, came a couple of games ago when Logan Stankoven got hit real bad. It was a clean hit by the Golden Knights. It was all good. Just 2 seconds after Logan Stankoven got flattened, Jamie Benn came and delivered his own crushing hit to the player that did that. So I think you're absolutely right. Jamie Benn was absolutely huge in Game 7, but also just throughout the entire series. And in terms of the Golden Knights, look, you have to respect their veteran presence that they have throughout the lineup. A lot was made about the LTIR rules and how they were, maybe bending them a little bit. And to be honest, to the point that I think Mark Stone, even though he was on LTIR, he came back, but you could tell that he hadn't played hockey in 2 months because there were times where he looked winded. And I was just surprised. I think the one thing for Vegas that stands out to me, I was just surprised about the decision to go from Logan Thompson to Adin Hill in net. And I don't think Adin Hill really cost them the series in any way. He played solid. He was fine. But that would just kind of let me know that there was something going on. There was something that was rattled with the Golden Knights, that they felt that their goaltender, who was absolutely fantastic throughout the games he played, they felt that they had to make a switch to a guy who was struggling down the stretch, albeit, led them to a cup last year.
Yeah, great points, one and all. And, Andrew, by the way, I want to make sure everyone knows and understands that Andrew was as engaged here in the sports office as any Stars fan was inside the AAC. He was absolutely locked in and had a fantastic night covering that game tonight.
And you absolutely called it, though. First goal made the biggest difference. They were playing with the lead the whole game through. All right, that's our Stars coverage. We're not done yet, though. When we come back, we're talking Mavs. Stay with us on the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show.
Today's headlines, sponsored by your North Texas Chevy dealers.
The Dallas Stars knock out the defending Stanley Cup champion Vegas Golden Knights with a 2-1 victory in Game 7. Next up, Dallas faces the Colorado Avalanche in the second round. Jonah hit a game-tying homer in the bottom of the ninth as the Rangers rally for a 3-2 win over the Royals. And Taylor Pendrith survives a wild sequence on the 18th to win the CJ Cup. Byron Nelson. We hit the ice. Now it's time to talk Mavs, who've already punched their tickets. Thankfully, we didn't have to worry about them at all today. Joe, what was your main takeaway from the first round?
It was the way that Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving have come together, right? At the end of last year, we all worried. We were all doubtful that they could figure this thing out, and they were able to figure it out. And it's that, and it's also Jason Kidd. I know in this town, we like to give that coach a lot of grief, but he is the coach that was persistent about pushing defense to this group, and defense is what led the way for those knockout punches from Kyrie and Luka. So those two things really stick out for me in terms of what the Mavs were able to do. What about you?
You kind of took the words out of my mouth. It was the defensive intensity, and that changed the moment the trade deadline came around with getting Daniel Gafford and P.J. Washington. Obviously, we can go back to last year in the acquisition of Kyrie and how that is revamped a lot of our opinions since that trade has unfolded, but this entire first round series was kind of case in point as to everything that could have gone right in the second half of the season. Jonah, what stood out to you most?
Just that they're able to toy with teams in terms of who they want to get the ball to early on. Most teams just go straight to their star player. The Mavs, they seem perfectly content having Kyrie being passive throughout the first quarter, even the first half, to get other guys going. I mean, he had 2 points at halftime, one shot at halftime of that game that they won because of 28 points in the second half. His ability to flip the switch like that cannot be understated because the Mavs haven't had that body. Usually it's Luka having to go wire to wire, and now, as Joe mentioned, that cohesiveness, that chemistry of them being able to play off of each other, with each other, and they could close out games. It's not just Luka. So Kyrie, huge factor to me. Number two is that ability to get other guys going leads to better performance throughout the game. So that kind of selfless basketball from superstars is, I think, really helped the Mavs offensively.
And let me pull on that Kyrie thread while we're talking about it too, because that doesn't happen without Jason Kidd and GM Nico Harrison being able to put their arms around Kyrie and creating the environment where he can be at his best. He had great, and we actually showed it on Sports Special tonight, there were just great comments from Kyrie after Game 6. You could tell that there's a growth, there's a maturity, there's a level of comfort that he may not have had in other places. And those other places, we saw how things fell apart. It's different here. You could tell it's different. And that's part of the reason why he has accepted that role of, listen, I know I can get my shot. I know I can get my points when I need to. I'm going to feed off of Luka, and when I have the opportunity, I'm going to be able to take it. And I love that. What about you, Saad?
For me, it's just the ability that they have to win games in different ways. I mean, this was a team that, especially prior to acquiring P.J. Washington and Daniel Gafford, they were so reliant on the three ball. And if the shots aren't falling, they weren't winning. And so now they're able to win inside. They're able to win outside. If the shot's not falling one day, they can bang you down low. And we saw it against the Clippers too, that, if they needed to get big, they were able to do it. So to me, it's the different ways that they can win games. And then it goes back to what Jonah was saying too, that, you have all these different weapons. And when Kyrie, we all know, we saw it in 2016 in Cleveland. We've seen it. We saw it with that shot where Gafford couldn't believe what he was watching while he was cooking. And Kyrie, late game, that's what he does. And so when you're able to bring all those pieces together and you have the engine in Luka Doncic, I think it all kind of comes together in a really big way.
We have done a lot of talking on this. I do want to, though, reinforce the stats on this. If we can bring up the graphic real quick and show you what these two did, Luka and Kyrie, in this first-round series. It was pretty impressive. 29.8 points for Luka Doncic, 26.5 for Kyrie at a certain point. What's remarkable about it is Luka has only played the Clippers in the first round for 3 of the last 4 years, and his average went down this year. He was scoring like 32 points per game, but because he had that second option, it just made all the difference in the world. And the other stat I want to point out, because obviously Luka's going to average close to a triple-double, but that 1.8 steals from Kyrie. He was fantastic on the defensive side of the ball. As much as we talk about Gafford, as much as we talk about Washington, Kyrie's defensive intensity, especially on Harden, changed Game 5 and Game 6 in the Mavs' favor.
No doubt. And the other thing is, in terms of the way that the Mavericks were able to win, it was incredible, right? Because, Saad, as you were saying, the Mavs can win in different ways now, but you know who can't? The LA Clippers. The only way they beat the Mavericks was to hit 18 three-pointers, right? And both of their wins, right, when they shot better than 50% from three. So their only way to win was to shoot lights out from three. And that's why I thought that the Mavs showed without a doubt that they were the better team in this series, because they're more playoff ready. Their formula is much more playoff proven. When you're leaning on your defense, you're getting those easy buckets, and then you allow Kyrie and Luka to be kind of the finishers. And listen, I think it's a formula that could continue going. I can't wait to see this team play Oklahoma City. And when you got SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, on the other side, Luka and him duking it out to see who's probably going to be number 2 in the MVP race, right? And I think a lot of people are leaning towards SGA. And, man, that will be fun when that comes out. And then we get to get Luka's response after the MVP voting gets made public. This is going to be good stuff. I can't wait, Andrew.
Yeah, it's hard not to love what we have in store. But with the Mavs coverage right now, it's just nice to have both teams still in contention. I think, that there was a potential that today was going to be the end of both. And now we're heading into the second round with momentum on both sides.
First time in 21 years that both teams have made it to the second round. So we got great things going on. Coming off the Rangers championship. We're not going to talk about the Cowboys. But, boy, these other teams, they got it going on.
Absolutely. We already mentioned the trade deadline, but that's going to tie into our top 5. Stay with us on the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. We'll break down the top 5 DFW sports acquisitions next. Welcome back to the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. We are taking a break from no fence riding this week because Jonah and Mike hate fun. And the Mavs' recent success requires, since acquiring Daniel Gafford and P.J. Washington at the trade deadline got me thinking, what are the best acquisitions in DFW sports history? It's time for a top 5. And let me specify something before we begin. I'm talking trades, free agency signings, things that required a move to be made, not just having a draft pick and selecting someone in the normal spot. So let's kick this off.
And now it's time for the top 5, sponsored by the Fort Worth Convention and Visitors Bureau.
All right, wasting no time with this one, let's start with something fairly recent. Only a couple years ago, the Rangers signing Corey Seager. At the time, I think this was unanimously a great move, but what it's paid off is unmistakably incredible. Delivered a World Series to DFW. I think that's the baseline. There were a couple of Rangers acquisitions I was considering. It's just none of the rest of them really resulted in the World Series 2 years later. Guys, what do you think? Joe, we'll start with you.
So you mean Alex Rodriguez?
No.
For what was it? $250 million for 10 years? That wasn't on your list?
I mean, no.
No. Listen, I mean, when we're talking championships, we are talking about the best of the Rangers right now because they've never been able to get there. So it had to be one of these acquisitions. And listen, the Jacob deGrom was one of the other really big ones. Obviously Marcus Semien, but the one that really, I think it resonates with everyone, and they get it. I mean, this guy was the leader. He is the leader. Him and Semien both. They really get this group going. So yeah, I'm down with that. All right,
let's keep it rolling here because I think this one is a little more topical. Number 4 would be getting the Dallas Stars. This is a bit of a cop-out because technically it's not a real acquisition. However, actually getting the Stars brought Mike Modano to town, and Roger Staubach was partially responsible for selling the NHL on bringing the Stars here to begin with. So I'm going to count it as an acquisition. Jonah, what do you think about this?
It's Brett Hull. What are you talking about?
No.
He scored the game-winning goal. It's Brett Hull.
Does Brett Hull
what
have
are
a statue outside the AAC?
You said star. We're not just doing star players. We got to do guys who made a tangible difference that they brought. Come on.
Oh,
it's Brett Hull. It's Brett Hull by a mile.
Saad, get in here.
I think it's a fair choice there because this wasn't something where the team was born in Dallas. They did relocate here. So I think it's fair, and that's a good way to get Modano on the list, I guess.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. All right, let's move on now to number 3 on the list, the draft trade for Dirk. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the Mavs did have to make a trade with the Milwaukee Bucks for this draft pick, but more specifically with this, the Mavs gave up a tractor trailer, I think. It was just a tractor trailer. Trailer was the guy's name. Either way, the Bucks might as well have gotten one because the Mavs got an incredible steal with this. Not to mention the rest of the draft day moves that the Mavs made. Joe, what do you think?
Okay, first of all, if that's at 3, I know what at least one more better be.
Yeah, sure.
Better be, but that might be too low for Dirk.
Too low with 2 spots left?
Wait, I'm just saying.
All right.
I'm just saying.
All right. Before we get too far in the weeds, let's go to number 2.
Yeah.
Signing Deion Sanders, more specifically with Neon Deion coming to town, a guy that was almost as big as the Cowboys brand in and of itself, flipped arguably a Super Bowl in the Cowboys' favor and established them as the team of the 90s. If he stays on the Niners, you could make the argument they trade for the rest of the decade. Either way, it got the Cowboys their 3rd one and ensured it. Jonah, what do you think?
Yeah, that was I was thinking about my short list, and I didn't, widen the goalpost to include Mike Modano and Dirk just for the sake of this Mount Rushmore argument. Yeah, I actually definitely agree with that one. I am curious to see what your number 1 is, though, because I think the one I have in mind is definitely not the one that you're going to say.
All right. Well, without further ado, let's just pick this thing off. The Great Train Robbery.
Okay.
When Jerry Jones brands it and the press conference as the Great Train Robbery, getting 3 cornerstones, including the all-time leading NFL rusher, there's no mistake about this. And as someone that grew up in a Vikings household, I can tell you there is real pain due to the results of that trade. Saad, does this round out the top 5 enough for you?
It does, but I'll tell you what, I think the Deion one is one we all saw coming, but there's an underrated one with the Cowboys of that era, and Deion flipped a Super Bowl, but Charles Haley kind of started that dynasty. When you think about signing Charles Haley, what he was for the 49ers, He came over right before the dynasty began, and he was there for those entire 3 and 4 years. Charles Haley is one that's really underrated to me. I know everyone talks about Dion in that era, but for me, Charles Haley was big. And you know, I think the rest of your list, it's pretty solid. Now, there's a lot that you can go through. The Corey Seager one that you got, I think that's really good, and it kind of pains me a little bit because Adrian Beltre would have been on that if 2011 goes a different way.
If they would have won a championship. But I will say this, I think you got number one right, Andrew, spot on. But I probably would have put Dirk and Luka together, because remember, Luka was a draft day deal as well.
Right.
And I probably would have put those ahead of Dion, right? Because of the Haley factor, right?
I won't object too much. I won't object too much. I'm just saying all 5 of these resulted in a championship within at least 6 years. So I think that kind of settles it.
I've got, hold on. 2 honorable mentions here. Jordan Montgomery, because we're talking Rangers. They don't win the World Series without Jordan Montgomery. That was an amazing trade. Also, Tyson Chandler, they just scoop up. That was a huge signing. Mavs probably don't win the title without Tyson Chandler. Food for thought.
All right, you guys, thanks so much. We appreciate Saad, Yousuf from The Athletic, and of course our own Jonah Javad. And we're going to be back with a final word with yours truly and Andrew Cely. Keep it here, folks. It is the ultimate Dallas sports show.
Welcome back to the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. Time now for Joe's Final Take.
Yeah, my final take is about Game 7s and how good they are and how sports fans crave them and how Stars fans should be so thankful because what they got tonight was just perfect. Their team got ahead, it gets tied up, they get ahead again, and then they stave off and dethrone the champs. It doesn't get much better than that. Game 7's rule, and Andrew Cely does too, because this was a live version of Ultimate Dallas Sports Show, and it
This
went
has
off without a
been
hit.
the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show, sponsored by your North Texas Chevy dealers. Together, let's drive.